So I'll be doing electronics again, and I find now I have to keep the volts at maximum after every operation. So adds are okay because they stay high voltage, but subtracts lose voltage and you have to get it back. It's okay being 5k with a 2k resistor instead of a 1k, but you're not allowed to be a 1k with a 2.5 volts, because it'll end up making you short backwards to the input. And so you won't get to the capacitor at the end because you're too busy shorting back to the input. So I do have a trick up my sleeve. That means after every subtract, you've got to turn it into current loss, not volt loss. Okay. If you put a capacitor into a transistor, this might not be true. Then the base of the transistor dictates the volts of the output, not the collector voltage. That's actually not true, but that's what you want. Because then it charges the output capacitor the same as what's going into the base of the transistor. And so that means your ending voltage is actually what's going to transfer to your state capacitor. There is going to be an amplifier involved, because the way I'm planning on doing my state capacitors is I'm going to have a capacitor sitting with a slow leak coming out of it, going into a transistor, turning the transistor on, and then I've got to make it all the way back around, and then and whatever leaks out of the state is permanent loss. So you got to get the compute done as quick as you can. Because your state's leaking out of your capacitors. So I think it's about 1 kilohertz. One kilocycles is one frame of my machine. So as the capacitors leak up over those 1000 instructions, it's permanent loss, but after 1 kilohertz I get to reset my state from the outside, from the sensor. So I have to last a kilocycle just draining out of my capacitors. So it's going to make it sort of drain to zero as it goes through its projection. So I'm not very good, so I could never work out how to do feedback. I think feedback takes an isolation. So if you're oscillating between capacitors, that's a temporal isolation. So I think feedback takes an isolation. When they've got their op amps and they just loop them back, that's because there's an isolation there. Without an op amp you don't have it. But you can do temporal isolation with capacitors by ping-ponging between two oscillations to separate the conduction, feedback the capacitor value, and that's another way to get feedback. So how's my computer faring against the GPU? It's okay. It's about as good. Yeah. So when I finish my computer, it's as good as I bought one. I don't know if other people's are like that, but it really is not that hard to actually beat a GPU. But no one will believe you. Yeah. So I think anyway. Maybe I'm like just off the mark of running this machine. Maybe I'm actually off a GPU by a small amount. But I'll get it in the end. So how big is my machine? Probably about 150 centimeters by 15 centimeters, I think it would be. So 75 centimeters by 30 centimeters is the computer size, and it's quarter watt. It's just ordinary quarter watt component, quarter watt resistors. But I might be wrong. That's my estimate for it at the moment. And I'm repacking it inside of a robot's head. How many transistors has it got? It's got a low amount of transistors because all my work up to now was about trying to do it with no transistors, but it looks like that's impossible, but it could be under 100 transistors. But there's more capacitors than transistors, yeah, on it, because the RAM's all full of capacitors, the ROM's all full of resistors, and it's just that I just need to amp into the capacitors and amp out of the capacitors. So that's what the transistors go at the beginning and the end of the ALU, and so it's only the inputs and outputs of the ALU that are packing transistors. So I can do it in under 100 if I do that. And so I actually multi-purpose the transistors into the RAM, which is just leaking capacitors. Hence the state loss over time. With this electrical delay, I might be in trouble because I might be too delayed to get to my hertz I want. Yeah, so I'll be lagging. I might not quite make it, but it's going to be close. But I might not quite make my budget on one core. Yeah, and then I probably can't finish it. But I got to take it to the point where I know it's not going to work yet before I come up with more ideas. But at the moment, about 30 by 35 centimeters. That's all it is, but it's only one core. I can't make it bigger than that. That's too big already. But I suppose, if you get to 100 micrometer reduction, it's a lot smaller, and then maybe you can fit more than one core.